Michael, you have a history with Toronto. What is that connection?
Yes, born here. I'll not give my age away, but yeah, born here and moved back to Ireland fairly quickly. So this is my first time back in the city in a long time. So it's fantastic to be back and really looking forward to doing the show.
How did
in
that
Toronto.
happen that you were born here?
My parents, obviously being from Northern Ireland at that time, were it was a bit of a sort of a difficult sort of situation politically at home, and they just sort of wanted to get out of there, and they came over here, stayed for 3 or 4 years, but actually got homesick and wanted to go home. So and that was it. I was born here and moved back to Ireland.
Wow. So Big Smoke is in your
Yeah,
veins.
it's great. It means fantastic. I flew in last night. It's just fantastic. And I'm just very briefly seeing the city this morning. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's a gorgeous spot. Now, we're going to get to the Graeme of Thrones in a moment.
Okay.
But let's go back to Game of Thrones. You joined the cast for season 5.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Like, how did you end up there?
Just auditioned at home. I mean, there are several locations where they film, in Europe, and Northern Ireland being one. And they held auditions, and thankfully I got through. Was originally only supposed to do 1 or 2 episodes, but as the story sort of, unfolded and the plot to, I'm sorry if this is a spoiler for people, but the plot regarding Jon Snow and what happens at the end of season 5 was materialising. They just added more and more and asked me to come in more and more and be part of it. So, in season 5 I had, those 10 episodes to help create that huge moment at the end of the series.
Nice. What was happening in your career at that time?
A lot of theatre work, and obviously, like most actors, just trying to find the sort of best bits of work that are out there. But, Game of Thrones being at home and being in Northern Ireland has been huge for the industry at home, not only for actors, but for crew as well and for tourism. It's been a massive thing. It's been so good. So it was great to be involved in it.
Now, you talked about the fact that you were responsible, one of the guys, for killing off a character that is so well loved, Jon Snow, by fans. And Game of Thrones fans are not casual in their love of the show. Have you had any situations where people have actually approached you in your real life and flipped out on you?
Yes, I'll nutshell this story, but I was in a bar and I met a group of guys. There was lots of different group of friends, and one of the guys who I didn't know had bought me a pint of beer. And by the time he had brought it back, the conversation had happened about what I was doing, in my job. And he is such a huge fan that he took the pint of beer back off me.
Oh my goodness.
He said, I can't believe I have bought somebody who stabbed Jon Snow a pint of beer. And he took it off me.
Whoa, to take a man's beer away from him.
That's serious stuff.
That is very serious. Holy cow. Jon Snow was brought back to life for his revenge now in the latest season, and actually got his revenge by having you executed. At what point do you find out that you're going to be killed off on the show?
Well, the guys on the show, the writers of the show, are just so good at keeping all of the information private, even to us. So they drip feed us the scripts maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance. And even at that, there are elements of the script that are blanked out. So, it's given through in, incrementally, quite slowly. So for us, for me to be given that through to read at the end of season 5 was huge, because at that point we thought that was it, that was the character gone. Yeah. And then when you get drip fed through and then you find out, you read that you get hanged, it's a little bit disappointing. But again, massive to be part of those 2 huge iconic scenes was an incredible experience.
Oh, I bet. But it must be like a little sad though when you find out that you're going to be offed.
Yeah, look, I think it was a privilege. It's mixed emotions. It's a privilege to be part of it. It was a privilege to get to know those guys, Dan and David and Brian Cogman, the guys the producers and writers, are so generous, so nice, treated me so well. So it's mixed emotions, because at the same time, that what you're doing is going to be seen to a global audience, and people are on the edge of their seats and will continue to be on the edge of their seats. So, as I say, mixed emotions. I would love to have continued to be, but look, there are huge characters that have gone on the show. So it's part and parcel of that show. It's what makes it so successful.
So true. You're listening to Q. I'm Candy Palmater, and I'm speaking with Game of Thrones actor turned Graeme of Thrones satirist Michael Condron. So a few months after getting killed off of Game of Thrones, this parody play, Graeme of Thrones, enters your life. How did you feel about kind of revisiting that material?
I worked with one of the writers, a guy called Andrew Doyle, who's fantastic. They've a great team of writers from the UK working on this. And we had spoken about this as I was actually in Game of Thrones. And we were very close friends, and I then explained, and he was obviously, because of Graeme of Thrones, watching the series, and he contacted me and said, they've just killed you off. And I was like, yes, I know. And so eventually, about 6-7 weeks ago, he called me and just said, look, this opportunity has come up. Can you come and meet the guys and have a chat? I think you'd be perfect for it. I do a lot of sort of physical clowning type comedy,
right?
Multi-role comedy. Obviously, we're going through all of the cast members in Graeme of Thrones, doing it very quickly, So he just felt that I would be right for it. So I went and met Sam Bailey, the director, who's fantastic, and yeah, they just said, would I be interested in doing it? And absolutely, 100%.
And it's not just like a simple parody. Could you explain the concept of the show?
The concept of the show is Graeme. There's this character Graeme who wants Game of Thrones to be this huge theatrical spectacle, but he doesn't have quite the budget of the original show, or just he doesn't have a budget. So he sort of entrusts some of his friends to come and help him. So I play a character called Paul, who is actually a technician on the show. He has no acting experience whatsoever. So he's pretty rubbish at acting and is given quite a lot of roles to fulfill.
Oh, no.
And then there's a very serious actress played by Libby Northedge, who's she's a real method actress, and it's really, really important. So she's taking it really seriously. So the real comedy comes. You don't necessarily need to know the background to Game of Thrones or the plot lines. There are obviously references there that fans will get, but it's just watching that play within the play, and Graeme trying to control these two characters and create this vision that he is pitching to producers almost. This is his pitch. You're watching his pitch.
Okay.
And he has no budget, so everything is, there's, all I will say is there's puppetry, a lot of bad costumes, and quick changes, and this sort of
puppetry. So like as props or as
I don't want to go. Yeah.
You don't want to give too much away.
I don't want to give too much away. You need to come and see it.
So what are some of the shenanigans that go down that you could share?
Well, all I will say, on the puppetry thing, I will just say Graeme doesn't have the budget for 2 actual dragons. So I will leave that to your imagination. Again, there's not much of a budget for costume. Quite a lot of the costume goes missing during the show, so it's improvising, trying to get those costumes together. So all of that chaos is just going on, and obviously the references to the show itself, to Game of Thrones.
When you think about Game of Thrones, what do you think are the aspects that are most ripe for parody from the actual series?
Oh gosh, I think that's difficult. I mean, we've been talking about this. We had a read through in London last week, and we were just saying, that the parody gives you the opportunity to look at the show in a whole different way. I was talking this morning about something like Spaceballs, which sort of was a send up of Star Wars, and I think you cannot have a parody unless what has come before it has been hugely successful. But obviously, Game of Thrones and some of the characters are so recognisable and so distinctive that those will just jump out at you as a fan. And if not, that sort of north of England, Winterfell, The Wall type thing, all of those things will just jump out at you.
Now, has working on Graeme of Thrones affected how you think or what your perspective is on Game of Thrones?
Not really, to be honest with you. I mean, as I say, they're just so, just poles apart. The strange thing for me is in Graeme of Thrones, I'm going to have to sort of send up some of the guys that I worked with in the Night's Watch. So Kit,
Right.
John Bradley, who plays Samwell, Owen Teale, Brennick O'Connor, who plays Ollie. So I play some of those characters.
Oh, somebody's going to be taking a pint off you again.
I probably will be. Probably one of those guys.
Before I let you go, is there anything that you're really looking forward to doing here in your birth city while you're here?
Of course. I mean, I'm obviously going to take the time to take a walk around the city because my family moved over that time in the 70s. My dad is a huge hockey fan. My son plays hockey. So Hockey Hall of Fame, I go to Maple Leaf Gardens, I'll take all of that in and I'll just do all the tourist stuff. But I mean, the theatre and stuff that we're working at the minute looks absolutely fantastic. So it's Panasonic Theatre and it's going to be fantastic. We start on the 11th of October, finishing the 23rd, and get your tickets through mirvish.com if possible.
Nice. If you're out there, listeners, and you see him in the city, don't take a pint off him.
Don't, please don't.
Thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you so much.